Hello and welcome to this week's CareerWise, your loyal and constant friend when it comes to getting the very best out of your career. This week's show is all about career rejuvenation. We follow one man who's revived his passion for teaching by crossing the channel.
I think there was a risk in London that I'd just stay in the same place and stay in the same job, and this has given me a new lease of life.
And Fiona Flynn from the TES will be visiting a school which believes packing a suitcase is part of good continuing professional development.
I am the most untravelled woman in the world. Do you think everyone should do a stint abroad, or is it a bit of a luxury?
No, I think it just allows them to think in a different way when they come back home and to try new ideas.
And we'll be discussing what teachers can do if they start to feel hemmed in.
It gets like they can't see the wood for the trees. So they have to go back to basics about what did they want out of teaching. What was really going to make this a fulfilling career for them? And then how are they going to leverage that within the profession?
Now, to see how teaching in an EU school could breathe new life into your career, CareerWise went to Brussels. David Shaw taught modern foreign languages at a school in West London for 13 years. He decided he needed a change and through the European Schools Department of the DFES got a job at an EU school in Brussels.
In fact, two of the classes that I teach are specifically for students who come to the European school late in their careers. And what I do is give them the basic English that they need to cope in history and geography, because in the humanities they have to do in their working language. Which often is English.
We would like that the teacher bring a part of their culture and tradition. There's a great potential with all this mixture of culture and tradition, so that every teacher can get something new from the other traditions and cultures. I always suggest the teacher to visit the lesson of another teacher of another country.
I'm from Poland.
I come from Rwanda. I come from Hungary.
And this book, although it's written for ordinary Americans and English readers, it's not too difficult to understand. I won't expect you to read the whole of it because I know that it will be very difficult, but we will take bits out of it and we will read some of it, and it will be very, very good for your English. Okay?
There are some regularities, let me say, between teachers of the same nationalities. For example, probably typical of a British teacher is really student-centered, much more than the other nationalities. This doesn't mean that the student at the end doesn't have a good knowledge of the subject, but they really take care of each student as a whole, not only as a student of chemistry or as a student of maths.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that, and then I'll ask you, okay?
In the European schools you can actually be a teacher. There's not so much paperwork and you can really get into the subject that you enjoy. At English schools there's a lot of jargon and you have to know every little phrase that comes out. The school, I've met some very, very friendly people from all nationalities.
I am from Italy.
I am from Spain. I come from Luxembourg.
From Pisa, a small town but quite known in the world for the tower.
We've been out to the concerts in Brussels and they've been able to show me around. We've been on trips out to Ostend and to Bruges, which has been really lovely. I've also really wanted, as I'm here, to improve my French and get my German up to scratch so that if I do go back to England, it's improving my skills bank. I think my quality of life has gone up actually. I walk to school every day, which is lovely. There's less pollution. I've got shops 2 minutes walk away. I can walk into Brussels. I think my quality of life has gone up substantially. Obviously it gives you plenty of advantages. I think there was a risk in London that I'd just stay in the same place and stay in the same job, and this has given me a new lease of life.
But what if you want to stay at home? Joining me now are Andy Goodwyn of Reading University, career coach Susan Moss and Patrick Nash from the Teacher Support Network to discuss keeping up your passion for the profession. Well, welcome to you all to CareerWise. Thanks for coming in. Andy, I mean, you're responsible for training hundreds of teachers each year. What happens between the wide variety of training they get and a teacher finding himself or herself disillusioned and wanting to leave a few years down the line?
I think there are two key things. I think with initial teacher training and their first year in teaching, the NQT year, they get a huge amount of attention. I mean, it's quite demanding and stressful, but they get lots of support, lots of feedback. They really feel they're being brought into the profession. Then there's a kind of vacuum, and second, they're just getting good at teaching about year 3 and really wanting to be a curriculum designer and be more creative, and they find themselves in a very tight box which is called the current prescriptive curriculum, and so they just get bored and fed up and want something more creative.
Patrick, is that born out from the people that approach the Teacher Support Network, a sense of frustration?
I think that's right. I mean, we found last year, we did a bit of a snapshot of calls, and we found that up to 70% of teachers at around the 4 to 5 year mark are actually thinking about leaving teaching. Now, obviously they don't all leave, but that's a real time when I think they do need a bit of extra support, and that's one of the things we do with our counselling and coaching service, is really help them think through, okay, where do I need to progress to next? Because although workload and work-life balance came out as the biggest reason people were considering, actually lack of career progression came out almost as big, with almost 50% of teachers saying that was the concern. So I would agree with what Andy's saying.
Susan, I mean, you've gone from working in schools to becoming a consultant. What do you say to teachers in terms of relieving them from that sense of entrapment in a job that perhaps didn't live up to all its promises?
I think I work with a lot of people one-to-one. What I find is they get very, very confused, and it gets like they can't see the wood for the trees. So they have to go back to basics about what did they want out of teaching, what was really going to make this a fulfilling career for them, and then how are they going to leverage that within the profession. And I find a lot of people will stay in the profession, but they might become more assertive about asking for what they want and creating the job that they want within the school, using their skills and their strengths. Once they start doing that, it becomes much more fulfilling.
What about this idea that people, if they do feel that sense of being trapped in the job and perhaps the initial passion for teaching is starting to ebb, leaving for a year or two or doing something else? Is that a wise thing to do you think?
Essentially, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you look at recent research, it suggests that quite a lot of people see teaching as part of a long-term career, not necessarily the only career, and I think that's quite healthy. And second, other countries like Australia, for example, a number of the states there, after 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 years, the teacher gets a term off and then just comes back. And building that into the system, I think, would help a long way with this retention issue.
And then those Australian teachers come over here and help our crisis in supply teaching?
Well, that's also true.
Would you say, Patrick, that there's a danger, though, that teachers, if they get an interrupted career path, there's not going to be enough incentive for them to come back in again?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think having time off to do something else, to re-inspire yourself, really adds value back into the classroom. I think also we're finding more and more, people who've had a different career are now coming into teaching, maybe in their 40s, as a second, in some cases, third career. And I think that's a really positive thing, because I think that's bringing a wealth of life experience to the young people in the classroom. So I think that's a good thing.
Thanks very much indeed to all of you for coming into CareerWise today. Fiona Flynn from the TES is finding out how staff trips abroad are influencing life at a school in Harrow. She caught up with head teacher Rekha Baku, who's just returned from a research trip to Hungary organised by the British Council.
Who can remember where I went to a couple of weeks ago? Where did I go? And I went off for a week. Where did I go? And it was really exciting. Kirthina. I went to Hungary. I actually went to Budapest in Hungary, and I visited some schools there. Although the children could not speak English, they were learning English just like you learn French.
So, Rekha, do you think everyone should do a stint abroad, or is it a bit of a luxury?
No, I think everybody should be entitled to, as a teacher, to go abroad. It just allows them to think in a different way when they come back home and to try new ideas and to explore, because at the end of the day, as schools, if we don't take risks, and I mean calculated risks, we can't bring about improvement. And it's about improving and trying our very best to provide our children with the very best education possible. And going abroad is fantastic.
So how did you find the school in Hungary?
If you want to do something, then you sort of go to the right people, you talk to them, you talk to governors, and you tell them what you will bring back, hopefully, to improve the school and children's learning. So where there's a will, there's a way.
So from everything that you learned in Hungary, everything that you gathered together, what are you going to bring back and do at Newton Farm?
I think probably one of the most important things was the education that Budapest provides in terms of linking with parents and getting the community involved in a child's education.
How do you mean?
In terms of the parents actually having a say in the school and the children having a say in what goes on in the school, and the fact that the whole curriculum is designed for the pupils. It isn't about meeting targets, it's about generating that whole agenda of personalising learning for pupils.
So is this more than a school's council?
Oh, far more. And shall I tell you something else that's very interesting? They get to choose the teacher that they are going to stay with for 4 years. What do you think about that? Choosing your own teacher. What do you think about that? Jack?
I think it's a good idea, because then it's like, if you choose the teacher you like, you will work much harder.
Right, so you think liking your teacher and having a good relationship is a good thing? Yes. And that would help you and other children to learn?
Yes.
That's excellent. What does everybody else think? Layla?
I think in a way it's bad, because it would make the teacher think that the pupils are in charge, but the teacher's not.
That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Layla said it may make the teacher think that the children are in charge. So who is in charge of the school? Well, I think one of the changes that I'd be making is making sure that children have a real voice, and I mean that they have real impact. So, for instance, we have been trying to develop our ideas based on playground equipment and what the children would like. The children say they want something different. So getting them to plan and to actually talk to builders and planners to find, so that they're working in tandem together to make their playground. It's not my playground, it's their playground and the parents' playground.
Well, if you want to broaden your horizons, log on to the British Council's website for more information and follow the link to Learning and Teaching. You can find out more information about anything on today's show by checking out our website. The address www.teachers.tv/CareerWise. Thanks very much indeed to all our guests for appearing on the show today. Thanks to you for watching, be it at home or in the staff room. We'll see you again soon.